Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves. It's cold here in Maine, and I understand a lot of the rest of the country is cold as well. We got to get those notices, those information tidbits out of the way, like always. You can like the Leather Elves on Facebook and get notifications that way. You can check our Facebook page to catch surprise sales, pop up events, things like that. You can follow the Leather Elves on Instagram and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a sale going on right now. If you're looking for that last minute gift for whatever holiday you're celebrating, we have now added gift cards to our site. So on the leatherelves.equid.com, you can that QR code will take you to gift cards, and if you enter code GIFT at checkout, you'll get 20% off. So, maybe you buy a gift for yourself. I'm all for gifting yourself. I think that's important. Another thing that we're doing is the foraging flock, and we are gaining members all the time. It's a wonderful group. We share ideas and we talk about different ways to keep your birds enriched, in particular foraging. And you can buy a membership for yourself or for someone else. And that's also at the leatherelves.equid.com. So tonight's guest is a lady that is she says that she's new to the bird world, but I'm thinking not so much. My guest is Claudia Katz, and Claudia owns a small aviary called Home Haven, and it's in okay. I'm going to try this Yucaipa, California. She's been working with and keeping birds for about 40 years. She's from a small village in England, and she started volunteering at the Peakirk Waterfowl Trust, the Exotic Pet Refuge, and the Ramsey Raptor Center at age 13. She has been a volunteer avian rehabber off and on for her whole life, and she has a passion for conservation both in the wild and in captivity. 6 years ago, she decided to set up her own aviary and with a focus on breeding species that are less commonly seen, such as hornbills, toucans, turacos. And she's also a plant freak, which is how we kind of got to where we're going to be tonight. And she loves to combine horticulture and aviculture in her aviaries. So I'd like to welcome Claudia to Friday Night Flock Talk. Hello.
Hello.
So that's a mouthful. You're so did I pronounce where you live correctly?
You Kuiper? Yeah, you did.
All right. Look at that. First time. This successful. We can be done
I
for the
know
night.
when the
Um,
realtor, when I said to the realtor, like, I want to get out of Los Angeles. I want to go somewhere like country, but not too country. And she said, "Oh, you Kuiper." And I said, "You what now?" And I didn't understand what she was saying either. But it's the topography of where we live, which comes into the discussion as well. We're about 90 minutes away from Hollywood, like the heart of Los Angeles type area, and we're a half a mile above sea level elevation wise, and it's in a valley at the base of a mountain. So it's kind of like a microclimate. We get hotter than Los Angeles and colder than Los Angeles, but we do have good air and water, which is not bad for Southern California.
yeah. So, um, so how did you go from rehab is your at your heart, your passion, avian rehab in particular. How do you move into the breeding side of things? Because sometimes can be at odds.
Good question. I mean, I'll be completely straight with you. Like, I just got sick and tired of um, basically trying to fix other people's mistakes, and it became depressing um,
Mhm.
and frustrating. And so I thought, you know what? Like, I want to make my own mistakes. Like, I want to put the proof into the pudding, which is like, here's me telling people, like, not necessarily just pet bird keepers, like also like friends of mine that had aviaries, and I could see problems there and stuff. But you obviously have to be diplomatic because they're friends.
Mhm.
But like simple adjustments. I thought it's all well and good me saying this, but like I need to put my money where my mouth is. But also, I chose species that, well, number one, my friends laughed at me. Is at that elevation, there's no way that you can keep and breed these like sensitive creatures. Hookbills, parrots tend to be hardier birds, and that's what my
Mhm.
friends up here breed. No one, as far as I know, has bred the ramfastids and the hornbills at this elevation in this particular area. So
Mhm.
that was a thing for skepticism. And then also I was labeled a Peter type, which I didn't really understand what that meant. My friend had to explain it to me. And I think it's someone that actually does rehab. I hate to use the word rescue because it's been so used in a negative way. Rehab. Anyone that does rehab is labeled an instant Peter type, which isn't true at all. So the transition for me was right. I'm fed up with fixing other people's broken birds. I want to have a go at raising them from like ground zero up. And then I can like be like, you know what? Like I'm just not going to comment. I'll just show you. The proof is in the pudding. I'll
Mhm.
just show you how you can make a difference with simple changes. So that's what it
Yeah.
came about. It wasn't well received by either end. Like, I'm friends with people that run bird rescues and, my aviculture breeder friends. Like, I think it was odd for everyone. And like I said to you, I think I came across as a hybrid, which there is
Mhm.
no shame in being a hybrid.
There's not, and I think, because I walk that line myself. We have a toy manufacturing company, but, I also speak, about enrichment. I speak about how to, best practices, when caring for a bird in human care, when there's a bird in human care. And I think it's it doesn't have to be cut and dry. I think there's a balancing act that happens, but kind of playing with everyone because the industry benefits from those hybrid people. The industry benefits from someone who sees the positive in breeding, sees the positive in breeding for conservation in particular, and then but also sees that there's the other end of the spectrum where they do need more care. They do need to be fixed, for lack of a better term. No, I applaud the hybrid. I think the hybrid bird keeper. I think that's important. Um, so,
But I'm not alone. I
so
mean, like I have several
yeah.
friends that I have several friends that are also actively like trying to encourage their birds to breed, but then actively do take in birds and get them into the right place. I mean, I have zero
Mhm,
problem with a bird that I take on if I feel like it really would benefit, being in a pet home, getting that one on one, or I really feel this bird needs to be with its own kind in an aviary, like, adding to its species. I have zero problem either way. It's just each
mhm,
case is assessed on its own merit as they come in. But that's the like exotic rehab side, not
yeah,
the wild rehab side. The wild
mm,
rehab side, my
yeah.
hands are tied. They just like they have to go back. Um, but yeah, no, that's how that kind of came about.
And I think too, there is that assessment piece that needs to happen. And I don't know that everyone who does rescue or companion parrot owners, companion bird owners, um, doesn't always look at that there are birds that are absolutely better suited not as pet birds. That's that, and you can tell, you can look at a bird, you can work with a bird. And I mean, do you have a process, Claudia, that you kind of go through, or do you just observe?
I mean, this is my full-time gig. I quit everything else just to do this. Like, I literally just sit around on my English arse all day, photographing, videoing birds. Usually cramped, but this is what I love. Like, it's my dream job. So observing is the biggest part of how I come to my conclusions. And then
Mhm.
interactions, like, not just me, I'll invite my bird nerd friends over. There's usually some kind of dinner involved just to tempt them to come over, like, hey, come touch this bird, see if it tries to eat your face off. Yeah, just like little things like that, just so it's not just me. I need second opinions from other people. But I'm so small, it's like, maybe one or two a year. Um, that I deal with, like the little citron crested cockatoo that I just posted about, Rusty. He was in a breeding situation. He'd lost his mate, and he'd gone through a couple of other aviculturist friends that had tried to pair him or like tried to set him up in a breeding situation. And all my birds are popping up on the screen. That's so lovely. Ooh. Yeah, no, I just thought I've never done this before. That's weird. Um, so I spoke to his owner and he agreed that he wanted him to come here, not for free, um, wanted him to come here and have a go, like for me to have a go. And so it was almost instantaneous. Like this bird that was parent raised hadn't been handled, as far as I know, in his 14 years. Like we instantly built up a rapport. And I know that citron cockatoos, I think, are CITES one still. And he should be like contributing to his species in captivity. But maybe that's down the road. What this bird needed right
Mhm.
now was, number one, to be out of the cold because he had been severely plucked by his mate who had passed away, and his owner wasn't set up to accommodate him indoors. And so we're trying him indoors. It's going really well so far. It's been 2 months. But is that his long-term project? I don't know. He gets to run the narrative. Like he gets to tell me what he wants.
Mhm. And I think that's important too, that people, you can't have the birds be completely in charge. That we, in a home setting, that's not always realistic. But you do need to let them run the narrative. You need to let them, they will tell you what they need if you listen, if you
Absolutely.
pay attention and you observe, you know. So let's talk about horticulture meets aviculture, or horticulture meets the avian world. Tell us how we titled this kind of working with nature, not against it. How do you make that happen at Home Haven?
All right. Well, there's two things well, possibly three I'd like to talk about. Number one is the changing climate right now. So the reason you and I got talking was because I posted about how I winterize my aviaries, and I think that's kind of relevant because whether people want to admit it or not, our climates are all changing, and people that haven't had to winterize before are now looking at, well, maybe I have to put up some kind of like shelter. And then again, I deal with mostly soft bills like the toucans, the hornbills, and the turacos, which are a lot more sensitive than the hookbills, the parrots.
Mhm.
So but I will say, like, again, with my friends that I come back to that live here, like literally down the street, I've been to visit their birds, and they've told me like their African greys, their macaws and stuff, like we get below freezing, but not for long, and not long periods of time. But I mean, it's still enough where, if a bird doesn't have the sense that it was born with to get into a warm nest box at night time, and they don't all do that. Like you can provide them with external heating on one end, like a nice little like sheltered area with a warm fluffy nest box. They don't all have the good sense to get in there when it's freezing cold. You'll see them sitting there fluffed up, shifting from one foot to the other, and it's just like
Mm.
it must be bloody miserable for them. Oops, sorry, no, TJ, I'm sorry, I didn't swear. Bloody is not really swearing. Shit is, oh yeah, I did it. Sorry, TJ.
We're
And
pretty, we're
yeah,
pretty,
no,
pretty flexible there.
yeah, no, so well, fuck it then. Yeah, no, so you know what I mean? It's like I just feel like with the way that the climate has presented itself the last few years. It's crazy. Like, you know, it's
Mhm.
just, I just feel like I was told by someone that came to visit that lives in San Diego, which is a little bit more, you know, nicer weather-wise than us. And he was like, "You're spoiling these birds. Like, you know, you shouldn't be winterizing. You should harden them off." And the funny thing was, he was actually dropping off two storks for me that had frostbitten toes from their life in Texas. And I wasn't the one with birds with frostbitten toes. So I just said to him, like, you know what, for the sake of a few $100 and a couple of hours whacking up some vinyl panels, like I'll sleep better at night knowing my birds are tucked up and like, you know, so the winterizing thing I think is going to be on a lot of people's books or should be moving forward. And the way I look at it is if you need to tuck up your tomato plants, you should probably tuck up your birds as well. Like that's to
Yeah.
me like where the line is. I know
Mhm.
that parrots are hardier. You've got the Kia in New Zealand that like literally is rolling around in the snow and stuff like that. Great. Um, but for captive birds, I've always thought to myself, well, the energy that they're expending on keeping warm in anything that's
Mhm.
below 40 could be energy that's put into reproducing in the spring. So
Yeah.
maybe it's more beneficial, you know, down the road, like for increasing numbers in captivity, for breeding, like just a little bit of something in the winter to keep them drying out the wind.
Mhm.
Because basically, like to me, anything below 40 degrees is not exotic. It's just miserable. And I said to my friend, okay, yeah, well, you don't believe me? Well, put your parker on and you go spend a night out in Avery then. Tell me how you
Well,
feel.
so you know Carrie Ellen from Bird Gardens of Naples, and,
I
Carrie's
do.
been pretty whiny this week because it's been cold in Florida, so, yeah, I think the winterizing, taking that step, and so many people, in warmer climates do have their birds outdoors, and I think it's something that needs to be considered. It's not, you know, you don't have to build a huge structure. You don't I mean, talk to us, Claudia, about what you mean by winterizing.
Okay, well, I have friends in not just in warmer climates, but I have friends in Denmark and Sweden that have their like toucans outside and stuff. But there it's a little bit more extreme. They
Mhm,
literally have like a heated concrete building attached to the side of the aviaries, and the birds will still go outside during the daytime if they want to. They have them tucked up at nighttime. So, I mean, for me, winterizing here where I live means the wind is brutal here. Like the wind off the mountain is friggin' refrigerated. Like it's like a nor'easter or a widowmaker. Like, you know, my friends have lost birds. They've had horrible respiratory infections. They still refuse to winterize, but that's on them, whatever. Um, you know, it's just like that's the main concern. And then also a wet bird that's, you know, exposed to that, like cold wind, that's pretty much a death sentence. So your main concerns are
mhm,
keeping them dry and keeping them out of the wind. But they don't all have the good sense, like I said, to go have the shelter at the end. So with our aviaries, we have a like the aluminum roofing, and we have their nest boxes, like the little private area down the one end. And then the rest of the aviary is just like open to the elements, or was open to the elements, the sun and the rainfall. Like it's all good for them. It's all enrichment. When it comes to enrichment, even having predators flying over, a hawk or
mhm,
something like that, it's all part of the richness of their life. Not all enrichment has to be positive. Like it's what the wild birds deal with. But when it comes
mhm,
to this time of year, the weather is so inclement. I found a company. I tried the Home Depot plastic wrap that you can buy and things like that. They just don't withstand the wind. So I found a company in Chicago called Marine Vinyl, and they make really good quality, clear as glass vinyl. And I think it's for like boats to cover furniture and things like that. And so that's what I use. And it comes in all different gauges. It's really quick to hang up. So for me, I'm a visual person. I love to sit in my garden and, look at my aviaries and my birds. So I don't want to see like opaque sheeting or anything else like that. It has that clarity. It still lets the UV through enough of the birds and plants, and it keeps them
Mhm.
dry and out of the wind.
Nice. Okay. So I think too, when you were talking about enrichment, I think you're absolutely, I agree with you 100% that not all enrichment has to be positive. That the reality of it is, it there are stressors, there are which build coping skills, um, and
And
in
bonding
a bird,
skills for couples.
yes, absolutely. So when you're talking about enrichment, it's you're much more natural when it comes to enrichment. What kind of things are you adding to the environment for your birds? And again, soft bills are a little bit different as far as what you're going to offer. But what kind of things are you offering for enrichment?
Well, talking to someone as the owner of a toy company, it's like
That's okay.
I still it's all right. Yeah, no, I do buy toys for my birds. That's the thing, the soft bills and the hook bills. I've got my pet hook bills as well. It varies. It's like, so for me, there is no better enrichment than plants. But plants
Yeah.
are friggin' expensive, like tropical plants, and then not all of them are
Mhm.
safe. There's literally a whole list of what can kill your bird or dog if they come into contact with. And there's a very small list of what you can actually, like, put in there. And so all
Mhm.
of my aviaries, and also with the indoor birds too, because indoor pet birds, they love to fuck up a fern. They do. A $10 fern is like the best toy ever. You just need to, with the, if you're, I swore again, TJ, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so it's like with the potted plants, if you're using potted plants, and most of my aviaries have like a wired floor as well, so I'm limited as to what I can do with the plants there. If you buy a bird safe plant like a fern or like what is it, like a succulent or something like that, you always want to change out the soil though, because a lot of them come with like the artificial fertilizers and things. You don't want your
Mhm.
birds eating that, and they will get in there and they will mess up the soil everywhere. So just get a natural organic fertilizer. It's usually fish pee or fish poop. Probably makes for an interesting, snack, but like it doesn't hurt them. So that's what I do with all the potted plants for the indoor birds, and also for the aviaries too. Like you change out the like the fertilizer, the potting soil in there. But the plants I find, number one, they're aesthetically pleasing. Like we live in an aesthetic
Mhm.
world. More and more people are thankfully getting interested in birds through social media. Um, they there's no denying the fact that like when you watch videos or look at photographs of birds in captivity, if you've got a suspended flight cage, and I have three of them for my lorikeets, but that's changing next year. We're building them a walk-in aviary. I was under the impression that you couldn't have them ever touch the ground, that they had to be, because they're so bacterial, like inclined, because they lick their food, that you have to have them up off the ground. I don't believe that's 100% true, and some of my friends do keep their lorikeets in mixed species aviaries, even. So, Lord knows
Mhm.
what crap they're licking. But no, those are my only three suspended flights. But even with suspended flights, I've seen what some of my friends have done, and it's amazing. They'll have like their potted plants and stuff that they change out because they're going to get destroyed. They'll put in
Mhm.
like driftwood and things like that that all get destroyed. Like everything gets destroyed. I mean, lorikeets are hookbills, like they chew stuff. And the softbills as well, they're the absolute worst. Man, I have spent a freaking fortune on bromeliads and like all the lovely expensive stuff that you see. And it's lasted maybe, I don't know, 2 days tops. But I think the thing about the plant enrichment is number one, it alleviates stress, just like any toy does, and
Mhm.
also like they really benefit from bird crap. So if they don't kill it, then it grows really really well, and then suddenly you're a bromeliad farmer. like, but I just think like it just aesthetically it's a pleasing for the birds, it's enriching environmentally, it's cleaning their environment, like it's cleaning their air in there too
Mhm.
and providing humidity. And it's just like it's what I like. I mean, so going back to TJ, to me is a mentor because he just I look at a lot of the stuff that he's done. He's way more experienced than I am. He's like half my age as well, damn it. But like, yeah, way more experienced than I am with the exotics and the plants and stuff. So yeah, like I kind of follow other people's leads. And then I've gone to visit other people's beautiful planted aviaries, and you just see like they go together. I mean, they go together. Birds feel
Mhm.
safer in a canopy for the most part. Like they sleep in a canopy at night time. Like if anything freaks them the hell out, they'll go fly into the canopy. So like
Mhm.
kind of create some kind of canopy or some kind of vegetation for them to go hide in. If something like a hawk, we get a lot of hawks up here. It just
Mhm.
adds to that like safety. And like I said, you do have to do your homework though. Like we get a lot of native plants that send out runners here. Like I think Chris Touchton took a cutting back as well. I wonder if it survived. Um, they send out runners like bamboo. So even if you have a wired floor, you'll suddenly get this forest like my keel build area there. That's all organic. I actually took out all the potted
Mhm.
plants because it was too much. I couldn't find my bloody toucans when I went in there to feed them. It was just like a completely overgrown forest. So all of that is Japanese paper mulberry, and it grows
Mhm.
organically from the two parent trees I have, and it pops up in every single aviary. It's not nutritious for them,
Oh.
or they do eat it. It doesn't actually have berries, but they sure do love beating the shit out of it. So yeah,
Hmm.
them's my toys.
So, yeah, when I was working with, rehabbing wildlife, and working with birds of prey, one of the things we used to do was create, barriers with plants so that, instead of they weren't birds that were gonna be breeding, a lot of them were housed, in solitary, aviaries, and we used to do, like, breaks with, even sometimes it wasn't plantings, it was branches, it was browse that we just put in there. And I think with any bird, if they're not going into a nest box, they're not utilizing that type of space, they can benefit from, like you say, the plantings, they can benefit from that natural barrier. And because, it's and working with zoos, it's the same thing. Zoo animals, if you really look at an exhibit in most zoos, you'll see that there's a place where they can be behind a bunch of bushes or behind, some plantings. And it's that kind of, I call it off show. So that but there is that opportunity for them to have that kind of away time. And I think that's important. That's another use for plantings, that does help.
I mean, I do the completely agree with that. Like I do the same with the shade cloth, like
Mhm.
because of the risk of the avian influenza, which is now spreading globally, which is a concern. I now have shade cloth, as you can see here on the stalk aviary video. I have the shade cloth over the top of every single aviary, which I don't particularly like, but I don't like the
Mhm.
idea of wild bird shit dropping down. Sorry, Steve Duncan
Yeah.
feces. Um, Dropping down into my aviaries either. And then also, I like the idea that it's still allowed, it's still breathable. Like, it still lets a certain amount of the water or the snow melt filter down through. So you're not having to get up there and
Mhm.
shovel as like I have done in previous years. Um, but it also gives them that kind of cover, from that. But I also use the shade cloth on the sides just to one area. So, like,
Mhm.
the main concern here is not so much the big hawks, like the red tails, it's the Cooper's hawks. We have very belligerent Cooper's hawks that will attack from the side. Like, if you see here on this video, I have the shade cloth at the side, and that's their safe
Mhm.
area, just in one end. So when somebody
Okay.
sets off the alarm, yep, that the Cooper's hawk's back. That's where they'll fly to. That's where everybody in every single aviary will go hide in that one area. You can do the same with
Mhm.
plants. The Cooper's hawks, God love them, but those long ass legs, they can like, strike from the side and like just grab a hold, and they probably won't be able to take your bird out, but the infection alone from their talons, it's you don't want,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's
Mhm.
exactly what you were
So
saying about the one hide area.
mhm. So as far as people, companion parrot owners, people who are keeping birds, as pets, planting it can seem daunting, if especially if you're dealing with birds that are not outside. When you were talking about, sometimes, birds they do go out when it's cold. They do sit on the other end of things. I know up at, Hagen Avicultural Research Institute, which is in, Rigo up in Canada, they had their macaw building. They had, beautiful aviaries inside that had plants and browse, but they also had access to go outside. And you'd see them out there when there were feet of snow. They would go out, they'd mess around in the snow, and it was definitely that novel enrichment, that kind of change of pace, and then they would go back in. So it's making sure that there is that opportunity. But Claudia, as far as what would you suggest for people that are keeping birds, in their homes, maybe don't have that outside option? Like up here in Maine, outside is not an option right now. Um, Plantings, what kind of things? Yeah, I don't know why I'm here. I do. I have a granddaughter. That's why. But as far as, what would you suggest people do in their homes, with plants?
You know what? So there's dumb small stuff that you can do. You can like buy seeds and grow your own vegetables, like any kind of greenery whatsoever that's safe. You can get your own fruit trees going. If they have a sale at Home Depot or at Lowe's on their banana trees or something like that, guaranteed, like for the most part, you're gonna lose them because they're just gonna chew them up. But that's what I mean. Like I have a rule: nothing over $5 with the macaws. Nothing over $5. They have chomped their way through so many beautiful palm trees and things like that. So screw that shit. No, I'm not doing that anymore. They get the on
Mhm,
sale stuff. That's like, and then also I've been growing my own too. Like I've been having a go at some vegetables. Hasn't really worked out. My husband said I should probably have a go at weed with the toucan crap, but I'm not a smoker. But yeah, no, there's just like could be an industry for it though. Yeah, no, but the fruit trees, I just don't think we get warm enough for it and a long enough.
mhm.
Maybe indoors, you know. But
Nick
no, like
suggested a chia pet.
a what? A chia?
A chia pet. The little do you know what? So chia
Is that
pets,
the
they were
thing with
all
the
the rage,
grass grows out the
and you
head and stuff?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
why
know, it's a
not? Isn't it
possibility.
basically just like cress? Or what do you call it in America? We call it cress. What do you call it? Alfalfa?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's Chris, yeah.
yeah, cress. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that works, but no, I mean I have my own indoor birds. I have 2.5 macaws of my own, and I have a guest staying for the winter with me. Yeah, I hang all kinds of crazy crap in there. Like I have all these like tree stands, so it looks like an indoor forest, and then
Mhm,
I just like hang all like whatever's on sale, basically ferns. They'll rip up eucalyptus if I can get it as a favorite,
mhm,
manzanita, just like whatever you can put in there. It's like um, with the enrichment, it's constantly changing. So, like I said, I do buy conventional parrot toys, but usually I'll buy like Planet Pleasures or Bonker Birds that tend to use like yourself, like use natural what would you call them? Not ingredients, like natural parts,
mhm.
implements of
Parts,
their
yeah,
toys as opposed to, yeah, parts as opposed to like plastic or things like that, which I always worry about. And like you kind of mix it up. I'm not being 100% honest with you. Like I don't just have plants in my toucan aviaries. I also have a shit ton of little rubber ducks because they love grabbing those yellow rubber duckies. I'll show you, and smacking the crap out of them because toucans are not vegetarian.
yeah.
Yeah, like each aviary, each of my toucan aviaries has, depending on the size of the species, a varying degree of rubber ducky, like laying somewhere mutilated on the ground. It's like, so they don't just, and then also there's not discounting. Like the smallest wire gauge I have is, I think, a quarter inch by quarter inch, but stuff still gets through. Like,
Mm,
baby lizards, God bless them. I hate finding them, but they'll grab them and they'll kill them and they'll throw them in their water. There's nothing I can do about it. There's bugs and
yeah.
things like, that's all part of the natural enrichment of stuff that gets in there. When you're talking about
Mhm.
like birds in your lounge, or in your bird room or in your bedroom, well, you don't really want to be throwing bugs and stuff like that in there for them,
Mm,
especially not the parrots. But like, there's just like just dumb stuff that you can do. Like definitely work with potted plants. I mean, like, it looks cute and it cleans the air in your house. It provides moisture and stuff, and your birds will invariably make a chopped salad out of it. But potted plants, give them a go. Or
mhm,
even as TJ, like I love what he did with, like, he got a piece of PVC pipe, and you could do that on the
mhm,
side of an indoor cage, even like a macaw cage or an Amazon
mhm.
cage. So just a piece of PVC pipe, and then like would put fresh cut branches in it. So you're not actually having to
Yeah.
propagate anything. It's literally just, there.
You can do that. So I've done the PVC pipe with just holes in it and put fresh branches in. You can also take the 3 or 4 inch diameter PVC, slice it down the middle, so you've got the two halves, hinge one side, and then you put wire inside or just sticks inside, and it closes so you can stand up taller pieces, taller branches, and create like mini trees. If you're indoors, you just take those branches, put them in, clamp it shut, and then they can still, hang out, perch on some of those branches. But it's something you can have in the house that's not, doesn't cost you a fortune to make. You can go to Lowe's, Home Depot, your local hardware store, get the PVC, get the hinge, and it's easy to make. I
The,
like
the
PVC.
I was just going to add real
Go
quick,
ahead.
like, but always make sure that you check that safety list, for
Hmm.
the safe branches, and then back to if you're going to go cut branches from your garden, which I used to do, like I have bottle brush for the lorikeets growing, I have eucalyptus growing as well. I kind of stopped that for now just to see where this whole, like, we're not on a migratory bird path where we are, but there have been
Hmm.
cases of avian influenza, and it is a concern if you're going to go get plants or stuff from your garden. Just make sure to like somewhat sanitize it, like, a simple peroxide and water rinse, something like that. If you're going to bring it in, same with branches for perches. It's like, nobody really knows like how bad this is or what the reality is. It's just like the scaremonger factor. But why take the chance? Like if you're bringing anything, from the outside indoors for your birds, give it a
Hmm.
quick sanitize before you do.
Yeah, and another thing too is knowing if it's your garden, that's one thing. If it's your yard, it's one thing. There aren't pesticides being sprayed. They haven't, it's not on a roadway where there's a lot of air pollution that's happening that's from, car exhausts or right on the roadway. And it's just things to think about. And I'm a better safe than sorry kind of person. I will
Yeah.
try new things. I will, but take that extra step if you're going to kind of bring the outdoors inside. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of important.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
so
the other thing I was going to, sorry, the other thing I was going to bring up was you mentioned about pesticides. Um, the the other thing that you can try and make changes with, this is again not indoor bird people, but like again to aviculturists and people that keep birds outside. Here's the thing: anytime you keep anything outdoors that isn't from there, you're going to attract predators, you're going to attract rodents. So, people have been dealing with that since shepherds on the hill back in like BC, whatever. Um, but there is a way to make adjustments. But right, number one, pesticides, rodenticides, hate them, cause more harm
Yeah.
than good. They literally
Mhm.
don't eradicate the problem that you're just trying to eradicate. It goes right the way down the line. It is so harmful to our native birds, to our native wildlife. So to me, anyone
Mhm.
that uses rodenticides or pesticides is a lazy person that doesn't care about the bigger picture, doesn't care about their own country's wildlife. They just care about eradicating a problem that's right there. So as I was talking about the
Mhm.
Cooper's hawks are the like we live on the edge of a national forest, San Bernardino forest, so we get a lot of predators that will either
Mhm.
fly over, walk through everything from bobcats, bears, mountain lions, raccoons. Not in my garden, thankfully, but like these are the things that are around us that we have to work with. So getting to the fundamental aviculturist problem is rodents. We had an absolutely batshit year this year because of all the fires with tree rats, which we've never really had a problem with before. I hate killing anything, but it gets to the point where it's like, this is nuts. Like, I'm seeing them in the
Mhm.
daytime. Um, so the working with nature thing is there are a couple of things that you can do where you don't have to get to the point where you're using rodenticide, like traps, glue traps. Don't use them either. They're just like they're again, they're so harmful to our native birds or like native wildlife that go there to get a mouse or a rat that's stuck in a glue trap. Your best bet is still uh, we use snap traps, but we use them obviously on the outside of the aviary, and then we also make like a little short tube out of wire, so our chihuahuas don't end up in them as well. And then also, if you're having a problem inside your aviary, you can get something that Chris Touchton told me about, and I have one. They're amazing. It's called Ratinator. So it's like a puzzle box for rats that catches them
Mhm.
live that you can put inside an aviary where your birds are, and it's not going to harm them. That's if the rats have
Mhm.
actually gotten into your aviary. But there's a couple of things that you can do to, try and prevent the rodent problem, which is always the biggest problem with aviculture, is like the rodents, because the seed or the pellets that you're feeding or the fruit is going to attract something. And so, number one is owls are your best friend. You probably don't want to hear it, but owls really are your best friend. If you can encourage
Mhm.
owls into your garden right now, I've got a pair of great horned owls working the night shift, and I've also got a barn owl that shows up periodically. Owls don't generally go after birds. They may freak your birds out in the beginning. And then I
Mhm.
remember a friend of mine on Facebook was posting that he had a great horned owl bothering his birds. So he was sitting on the stoop of his property with a BB gun, and he was going to take the owl out. Yep, that one right there. Oh, Venus, she was beautiful. Um, but here's the thing, number one, it's illegal to take pot shots at wildlife,
Mhm.
especially birds of prey, I'm pretty sure, in every state. Number two, if you want to take a great horned owl out, don't be using a little pissy BB gun, because you're basically just going to blind it or injure it for a long, slow, painful, cruel death. And it's like it's probably not after your birds, it's probably after what's bothering your birds, which is the rodent problem.
Yeah.
But best case scenario, you get a pair of barn owls set up on your property. You can buy, there's a bunch of organizations I think that will actually give you an owl nesting box for, barn owls patrolling your property. Um, my birds freaked out probably the first night. They're like, what the hell? And after that, they don't even bat an eyelid. They're just like, oh, yeah, no, they're just taking care of us. Um,
Mhm.
Another thing is, this is what we had to do with, we had to take up everyone's leftover food every single night and their water, because where we live, fresh water is not an easy commodity to come by. So I have a
Mhm.
water feature. I have a pond, but it's more of a pothole really, but it's kind of cute. Um, so I take up everyone's like food and water at night time. So you take away the thing that's encouraging them into the garden. That's a lot of work.
Mhm.
I mean, I've only got 12 aviaries 3 flight cages, so that's a lot of graft that you have to do. Um,
Mhm.
Another thing that you can do is think about the species that you keep in your aviaries that attracts. Like, here's the thing: a lot of people use chickens, like poultry, to be the cleanup crew in their aviaries. Well, poultry, any chicken farmer will tell you, is like the number one attractant for pretty much everything. Like,
Mhm.
they stink. Like, their poop stinks. They stink. It's like it attracts everything into your garden. So it's like that's why I don't have poultry or waterfowl anymore in my garden, because it was kind of adding to the problem. I gave all mine
Mhm.
away. It was just like you find, like, yes, they're picking up the seed, and I only have, like, the only seed eaters I have are a pair of parrotlets and a couple of finches, but it was enough to attract, bigger predators into the garden. I got a
Mhm.
skunk coming in for the first time ever, and raccoons coming in. It's like you have to think about, these things will. I'm never going to stop these wild elements coming into what is basically their backyard, even though I own it. But maybe there's something I can do to work along the lines of not making it so tempting. I've heard people talk about they use hot wires around their aviaries to keep the bigger, like predators like the raccoons and stuff off there. I wonder how that would work over time though, because they're very smart. And
Mhm.
I would
Yeah.
imagine they would somehow find a way to get over it. But these
Mhm.
are just like factors, the hawks, you're never going to stop the daytime predators like the hawks from flying over and taking a pot shot. But again, what we talked about earlier with like providing hide spaces, either with,
Mhm.
plants on the outside that give them more of a canopy, or an artificial canopy like I use with like the shade cloth. um it's just, these are things that you can do. You're not going to stop it, especially again
Right.
coming back to the climate change thing. These creatures, they're losing their habitat. There's less and less food and water available for them. Your little
Mhm.
exotic smorgasbord that you set out for them, they're always going to be attracted to that. You just have to find ways of working around that or discouraging them coming into your garden. I've heard with the daytime hawks, sorry, I'm ranting, but the daytime hawks, I've heard that you can use reflective spinners on top of your aviaries. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like a reflective windmill. I've heard
Mhm.
people using like round mirrors because they're very territorial, and if they see what they perceive to be another hawk, they won't even come into your garden. You know, um, Either that, just get a really big fucking hawk, an exotic one, and just stick it. It'll
And
go
I
in the middle of your
I think it's a matter of problem solving naturally. And I think we need to, when we're looking at like the rodent issues, and you're right, we're always going to have those. Whether you have one bird or 100, you're going to have that
garden.
issue. And it doesn't matter how clean you are, it doesn't matter, how well clean up, it doesn't matter. But Nick did ask too. I want to just clarify when you said, having a pair of barn owls or having, great horned owls, those are not pets. There's no keeping those
No,
animals. They are wild
no,
animals.
it's
And
illegal to keep them.
you can set up an owl nest box, but you can't, it's not your pet. You're not caring for that bird. You're not
No,
domesticating that bird in any way, shape, or form. Um, Nick asked, so as doing rehab, do you have to be licensed to do rehab?
yes, absolutely. I worked, because I just retired this year, to focus on my own aviary. You have to work legally underneath either your own wildlife rehabber license or somebody else's wildlife rehabber license. So mine was under the lovely Candy Kansler Barnett, who runs the Bear Paw Rescue Ranch. And so I worked under her license. But she's the
Mhm.
boss lady. Like, you are. heavily policed, for want of a better word, because it's a very strict protocol in place for getting these birds back into the wild. And as you and I talked earlier, like, there are people out there that aren't licensed, that are keeping, wildlife as pets and posting them on social
Mhm.
media and ending up getting them confiscated and euthanized. It's like, it's two very different things. It's like,
Mhm.
if it has a chance to live free and be free, it should be free. If not, then Fish and Wildlife have very clear guidelines, which are, if it can't be released, euthanize it.
Mhm.
If there is there are licensed facilities like the California Raptor Center that are able to use unreleasable raptors for educational purposes, but very
Mhm.
few and far between. So, when people go running out there and they find these baby birds and they decide to raise them themselves and stuff, well, God bless them. I mean, like, you know, in their mind, they're doing good, but really, they're just
Mhm.
not.
Well, and I think, having worked with birds of prey in a rehab setting for education, I can tell you we had a red-tailed hawk that was non-releasable, but, it came into the center because someone found it, took it home, used to take it and have it in their bed with them. And it was this pet. It was a red-tailed hawk that was being treated as a pet. That is never okay. And I think the you and I talked too how um, it's really important that if someone is doing rehab, and is doing it legally under a license, that it's not about creating these little wild pets. It's about taking care of this animal so that it can be released at some point. And I think that's a really important message for people to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were talking about that poor raccoon and squirrel, and like, everyone's just like, oh, this is the government overreach. Well, those people caused that situation, sadly. Like, how heartbreaking for them, but how heartbreaking for the actual bloody squirrel and raccoon that and had their life ended. Like, those were all choices that were taken out of their hands by other people, but that's like a whole other conversation. But getting back to the owls, so there are a lot of vineyards here, and they use the barn owl boxes to keep the rats off their grapes when they're ripe. So they
Mhm,
just like every vineyard, I think it's all the way pretty much here to, I want to say like San Francisco when you drive along. My husband and I were counting the number of owl boxes that we saw in each of the vineyards. So like, hey, the wine growers have been onto that for a really long time. Why aren't we aviculturists? Just like we should be doing the same thing. The great horned owls, like I said, um, it's like I've heard of friends that had great horned owls strike their pheasant pens or their chicken pens. Uh, I don't know if I've ever. They probably would. They're a much bigger owl, but I think a lot of it depends on the wiring that you're using. So if you're
mhm,
using like a standard poultry wiring, I'm quite sure that they are able to like do some damage, get in there and rip and stuff. But again, it comes back to the shape, that hide thing that we were talking about. There
mhm,
are ways to work with these creatures that ultimately will save you a fortune in, you know, lost revenue or lost
mhm,
fruit or damage if they chew through your wiring or stuff like that. It's like there are ways to work around that. When it comes to the bigger predators, my advice is go to the bloody shelter and get the most vicious unadoptable dog that they have and have that as your garden patrol. I mean, like, it's saving a life and then taking out. I mean, raccoons terrify me. I only had raccoons come in my garden once. I just bought some really cute koi and they took them all out in the first night. I only got to enjoy them for 24 hours. They didn't touch my aviaries. They literally just came and emptied my koi pond out in one night. So now I've just got Petco feeder fish. But raccoons, I think, are everyone's nightmare. I've had possums and skunks, but they were more interested in, what was being flung out of the aviary, scraps of fruit or scraps of Missouri pellets. They weren't really that interested in going after the birds, but raccoons, no, don't want them in my garden.
All right. We have come to the end of the hour, and I know that we have more to talk about. So, if you'll come sometime, we'd love to have you again on the Flock Talk. And
Absolutely.
I I appreciate, you coming on, and I know, it's sometimes difficult to talk about it's difficult to talk about your passion, and especially when you've had, naysayers. So I really do appreciate, your coming on and sharing, what you do with us. And, but yeah, we will definitely have you back again. So, and we'll talk more about conservation breeding if you're willing to do that. I think that's important.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I'd love that.
all right. Well, thank you. And next week, I am going to have Miguel Rocha, who is with Hornbeam Aviaries, and we're going to talk about breeding the black cockatoos. So I'm super excited about that. Um, don't forget, if you're looking for that last minute gift, we've got gift cards on sale, 20% off. Enter the code GIFT at checkout. That QR code on the screen will take you there. I appreciate everyone listening. Claudia, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see everyone next week. Take care.